Hey, welcome everyone to this panel discussion led by some of the clinicians at Mindful and Multicultural Counseling. We are a practice based out of Ewing, New Jersey, and some of us do only telehealth sessions, some of us do in-person sessions, and some of us do like some combination. And we're really excited to be having a conversation with you all, and we really mean that, a conversation with you all. And we think um, community is so important in this time. And I was trying to think today about I'm Natalie Edmond, she, her pronouns, a psychologist in the practice. And I was thinking about like, how did we end up coming up with this even title of like emotionally surviving the dumpster fire? And I think it was in some sort of group supervision staff meeting where we were kind of checking in on how we were all doing. And somebody called it a dumpster fire. I don't know which one of you called it a dumpster fire, but it seemed to be a affirmation that that was an accurate, and that was probably like a month ago. So it wasn't too far into this administration. So we thought there must be lots of other people also who consider it a dumpster fire or have some other adjectives to describe this time we're living in. And so we thought, why don't we do something about it and have a public conversation, go from there. So I'll have my colleagues introduce themselves and we'll go from there.
Okay, I'll start. So I'm Christine Aguilar. I am a LCSW therapist at the practice. And I don't even know where to begin in terms of what do I find problematic. For me, each day, it seems like some new fresh hell that I couldn't anticipate that would ever happen. And where I'm going, I notice that I'm really angry, off like a lot. And so I'm trying to effectively channel the rage that I have, whether it's through exercise or through activism, or alternate rebellion. I find one of my, I guess, kind of fun ones is I've been buying a lot of t-shirts that are irreverent with messages that I wear out in public to kind of garner attention and have discussions. So
Like what? What would be what would
like one is stop pretending your racism is patriotism. There's another one that burn the patriarchy. I have the girls will be girls shirt that has Judith, the biblical where she's beheading. Anyway, there's quite a few of them. um, that I'm having fun with. So yeah.
nice? Great. Thanks, Christine.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go next. I'm Taryn Chase. I'm the clinical director here. I'm an LPC and LCADC. I know I personally have been noticing a lot more avoidance of social media. Like I have friends who will send me things and I'm like, my friends, I do not have the spoons today for this. And trying to be like, you know what, I got to take it in smaller doses or a more like focused doses. So I've been trying to not be on my phone as much, although that's not always the case. I think a lot of what I've been trying to channel it into is finding more of my own peace. I've actually been getting more into like mindfulness practices and yoga, in particular aerial yoga. I'm enjoying a lot as a way of like trying to channel that energy and try new things and be more like present. So like that's been pretty helpful the last couple weeks.
I'll go next. My name is Araceli Reyes. I'm a licensed clinical social worker at the practice. Um, Something that has come up for me a lot, and it's basically since first day of him going into office and being swearing in, was a lot of hypervigilance in regards to everything that's going on. And to me, I feel it's a very valid hypervigilance. However, it was becoming very debilitating for me, so I had to and I still am, because sometimes I find equilibrium and then another thing occurs on a daily basis and throws me off again. So it's using a lot of, because I prefer a lot of like sensory self-soothing kind of things to help me move from hypervigilance to awareness, because I feel I'm able to kind of like tackle these very anxiety provoking things and very scary things for me. Um, for me, the challenge was like everything that comes out on a daily basis, multiple times a day. And it's just me using those skills to kind of shift from being hyper vigilant to just being very aware and very conscious of how I engage in the world.
Hi everyone, I'm Haley Zelaya. I'm a therapist here at the practice. To be honest, just hearing everyone talking about their experience and then thinking about my experience since the he has taken over office, I'm getting anxious just, experiencing it as like heart is racing right now. I just like want to take a deep breath. Also, I'm a little nervous to be on this webinar, it's first time. But I want to take that acknowledgement and say that, you know, talking about this is going to be difficult sometimes. It is going to bring up some emotions, but it's good to be truthful with yourself, honest within yourself, and know your own limits. What do you feel comfortable talking about? What do you feel comfortable acknowledging and sharing with yourself or others? So, with that being said, I've noticed that I'm choosing and picking my battles when it comes to talking to people. um there's the conversations when it comes to like family don't really side with me, and I'm just like, okay, I get it. I feel like our connection is not going to be the same knowing that you're going against my beliefs and my choice of lifestyle. So I kind of like try to set boundaries and kind of just, I'm going to let you follow your own path. But when it comes to people who I believe would love me no matter what, I kind of want to be like, hey, let's have this conversation. It's worth knowing my side, not just your side. But I've also noticed, actually, Terry, I've been using social media for myself, sharing things when it comes to Latinx profiles, gay community profile. I've noticed I'm gravitating more towards that so I can share with people who don't follow them or don't have the knowledge. So it's been interesting, because I'm getting backlashes like, oh, don't post that, or people are not going to think you're a professional because you posted about Trump doing this. And it's just like, well, you can unfollow me then. Because this is what I believe in and this is what I feel is right, that I believe the community I have on my social media deserve to know this information.
Yeah, I so appreciate that because I think when I started Mindful and Multicultural Counseling almost 6 years ago, I really wanted it to be about how do we um, center the most marginalized in our communities. And I think we all hold marginalized identities of some sort. And so thinking about, particularly under this administration, like who's the most vulnerable, and really how do we politicize, the work that we do? Because I respect the clinicians and the people who say like they want to keep politics out of it, and that's not a reality that I live in. And it's not affirming to me, it's not liberatory to me. And so, yeah, I think for me, part of what I've had to, I think, reckon with over the last 6 months or so is really like, what is like, how do this book called about like building anti-fragility? Like, how do I build my anti-fragility so that when people are unhappy with me, or I get backlash, or people are misunderstanding me, or like saying things that I didn't say, or interpreting things as like hateful or violent, or whatever the ism you want to add to it, that how can I tolerate and be in my own truth and not let that like hijack me or hijack my nervous system. Like I can still have the feelings. This book that I read last year that is like my favorite book probably of this decade, Hospicing Modernity, talks about how do we surrender without collapsing. And so I think about like what's a way that I can surrender without collapsing, because I think um, sometimes when the dumpster fire is going and you're like inundated every day with something new, then it can, I can't sustain fight for long periods of time. And so then like I could collapse. And so like I appreciate Christine, like I always think about you when I'm like, when I need more of that, because like I feel like I have a slow simmering rage most of the time. But I also have a lot of room for sadness. And I'm trying to rest, but I'm trying not to go into too much fawn and too much freeze or too much despair, right? Because it's like there's work to be done in my circle of influence. And even if I can't change the bigger system, there's still ways that I can chip away at it. So that's where I'm at. The book is, which book? Oh, that is Hospicing Modernity by Vanessa Machado de Oliveira. She has a lot of different names, and I think she had like a maiden name, so let me look at it. It's called Hospicing Modernity, Facing Humanity's Wrongs and the Implications for Social Activism. And it's Vanessa Machado de Oliveira. So highly recommend it. I also recommend Social Justice for like the Sensitive Soul. That's also a really great book if you're one of those people who wants to be in social justice movements, but also recognizes that you're a little sensitive. Like that's also a good book because there are a lot of different ways to do activism, for sure.
When we were initially having our supervision and, and came up with this idea, one of the themes was just the anger, the fear and the anger that we were all feeling. Well, at least I'll speak for myself. I was feeling as an individual, and that some of my clients were sharing with me as well. And then like what to do with that. And for me, I focus on the anger piece of it because, well, I'm an unapologetic feminist, and I think the ability to express angry feelings and use strong language is something that was hard fought for. So I take advantage when appropriate, when I think it's appropriate. And so I'm of the opinion that, I think outrage is the civil response here in light of what we're seeing. And I'm also of the opinion, well, I would like to see racists and misogynists be afraid. I would like for them to be afraid to say some of the things that they say. I would like for them to go back into that proverbial closet. And so then it's what is it that, my mindset is like, what is it that we need to do to help bring that about? Part of my reasoning for the t-shirts is because I think there's a lot more of us that believe what we believe. And I think it's important for us to talk and for, I guess, some of the misogynists and the racists to see that they are outnumbered. Because it's really easy for us to be polite. I think a lot of us have been raised to be polite people. And I think right now that, in my opinion, that time has passed.
So wondering what others think about this, like the time for politeness is past. The time for like not even politeness, like niceness, kindness is past.
I would agree. I think also it's something that is often thrown back at, more liberal feminist people of like, oh, well, that's not very nice of you. But then the person on the other end is like nasty. And like, as soon as you have that response, it's like, well, that's not very nice of you. Right.
Right,
It's like,
that's the
it's a
point, right?
weaponized.
Mhm.
It almost feels weaponized too much. And it's like, we're not playing by the same rules. We're not playing even in the same ballpark some days. And I think like sometimes niceness is great, but as I like to say, I'm salty. And sometimes salt is what is needed to make a recipe work. We'll put that on a t-shirt.
If I can answer to that, I don't know if
Hmm.
I can do more than one at the same time. So I can't be nice and try to be fearless at the same time. I can only do one of those. And I'd rather be fearless or honest and nice. I can't do those at the same time. So I'll probably choose honesty if I can, and that is not easy for me. Cause nice is my coping mechanism.
Mm.
So I gotta shed that for there to be some kind of possibility if we're gonna have an exchange. Some other possibility than me shutting myself down or sort of self-censor.
Yeah, if I may, Lisa, like maybe swap out brave for fearless, because I'm scared. I'm not fearless. I just try as much as possible to choose the bravery to be brave in the face of being afraid. And choose, like, take the risk to be authentic. But maybe like fearless is like too tall of an order.
It
Right.
sounds more badass to say fearless, but you're right.
Yeah, right. But
Brave is also badass, and
Yeah,
you
feel
can
the
be
fear and do it
brave
anyway.
and feel fear.
all right. Yeah.
I also think, hi, my name's Lauren. You said, being nice or being kind. And I really think it's important to differentiate those two words, because I think they're entirely different words.
Mm.
Nice to me is more of, I don't know, it was years ago I read that article about some woman who decided to stop putting exclamation points in her emails, and for weeks felt like the biggest bitch. And I was like, I'm gonna try that. And it's true. I felt like such a terrible person. I just took exclamation points out of my emails, but I'm like, why am I apologizing? It's basically an apology. But I definitely think there's a difference between being nice and being kind. I have a client recently who had voted for Trump, and it shocked me to my core when I heard her say that. And then I was like, okay, and I re-regulated myself, and a couple weeks went by. And then in last session, I find myself outside of session questioning, oh my God, I don't know, I'm so pissed at this person. And in the last session, she told me she had a whole conversation with a friend about how much she regrets her vote and where it was coming from, her own trauma related issues. And if I was not differentiating nice and kind, I would not have been, I don't know, as open as I was to her being able to say, I got on the train going the wrong direction. And as soon as I realized, I got off, and now I have this regret. And if I'm not kind and reaching out a hand to her to say, thank you, I hear that you're making this realization, I'm just saying, well, yeah, you did. You screwed it all up for the rest of us. So to me, there's like that's really important to make that differentiation between nice and kind.
Yeah, I'm in the same place with you. I mean, if anyone has ever gotten an email from me, like my signature line is, may you sprinkle kindness wherever you go. And so like to me, kindness is like a core value. And I feel like I can be really angry and rageful and still kind, right? Like that's a muscle I've built because I've practiced it. I think niceness and politeness, yeah, like I'm over that. Like, and I also know like living in this Black body, Black, particularly female body, like I'm constantly challenging all the socialization I've had around like stay quiet, don't make waves. And I think I find lots of ways to make waves, but I also know that there's a certain like cultural conditioning that I've had, and also the ways in which I am punished for not following certain expectations, like not being a model minority at times. And yet I feel like it's really important that what little privilege I have, that I use it to say the things that others cannot or not or won't say at this time or are not able to say at this time. So I'm always going to root for kindness. Like I don't wish ill will to people, and yet I want people to be accountable for all the harm they are doing. We don't need to be in this dumpster fire.
Mhm.
May all the consequences head their way too.
So I'm thinking back to what I heard a couple of you say about having conversations with people or not having conversations with people. And it kind of ties into like the kindness, accountability, politeness. And I wonder if we could chat a little bit just about like how are you navigating conversations?
I know I had a client who just verbalized to me very recently that he voted for Trump. And even though there were kind of like inclinations in the way he spoke about things that made me assume that, he finally kind of mentioned it because him and his fiance are having a lot of attention um in regards to it. And for me, it was kind of like, that wasn't a good choice. What's my thought process? And really kind of reacts the why, but a why in a way to kind of figure out what's the value, what was the reason. And from what I gathered is that the vote was a trauma response, and yet he's going to have to experience the consequences of such a thing. And him having to navigate what's probably going to be very frequent negative interactions with his fiance because she's angry, very validly so. And he's going to have to kind of navigate that. So hopefully he'll do it effectively. And yet we make choices and consequences follow.
Trying to figure out how to respond on social media when I have a lot of colleagues and friends in Canada and Latin America who post about America and Americans, and I feel sort of blanketed by those. I feel targeted by that in a way that I don't identify anymore. So, well, not that I don't identify anymore, but I feel like I have to disidentify with, because the consequences and the results and the fallout that they're angry about and that should rightly be angry about and that they're looking to distance themselves from feel like a distancing from me and everything that I have up until this point been able to identify with. Not that it was ever uncomplicated, but I see these posts and I want to at every turn say, but not me. You don't mean me, right? Or you're still going to come down and visit, right? And I know it sounds silly, but each time someone says, yeah, no way I'm going to go here again this year. You can't get me to New York City anymore. I want to say you're probably right. You probably shouldn't take those risks unnecessarily right now. But I also don't want them to. I don't want those posts to go in some way on. I don't. I don't want to police anybody's tone, but I kind of want, I feel like I want to remind people, not all Americans, we didn't all vote for and ask for this. And my energy is, I don't think, very well spent there, so I don't do it. I don't feel like constantly interjecting there and reminding people is that important. Like, they should be able to say whatever they're feeling, and those posts don't need me and they're not about me, but I'm always feeling something about those posts.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to be mindful of the ways we're triggered, right? And because I think that that can give us some sense of how to respond. I know that for myself, like one of the ways that I've been coping is reading a lot of books about colonialism and racism. And for me, that gives me comfort because it makes me enraged and very sad, but not in a collapse way, but in a like, this is not new. This is, something that's been going on for a long time. And that the veil has been lifted for a lot of people. And I think what I've been reckoning with is like the story of the United States as being like this good person. Like if the United States was a person, like the story of the United States being a good person, you know, that a lot of people want to come and live here and American dream and like we have democracy and all these rights. And yet if you actually look at history, it's been a dumpster fire the entire time. And like we're living in it. And one of the things that I guess grounds me is thinking like my ancestors like lived through things and like I have that strength within me. And so how can I remember that strength lives within me? And community is really important. And that, you know, for me, it's like both parties are problematic. Both parties have misogyny in them. Both parties have racism in it. Both parties have transphobia and homophobia and classism and all that stuff in it. It's just that one of them is packaged. It's like nicer, right? And has some more safety nets built in. But the system is broken and not meant to benefit most of us, even though some of us are a little bit more protected than others. And I think that's what I've been reckoning with is there another option, another way to live a better life, to support the people I care about? Because I can't rely on other people. Too many people are invested in this dumpster fire, or are unwilling to speak truth to power or be disruptors and use their power and their leverage. You know, if a decent amount of people decided tomorrow, we're done with this dumpster fire, they could do it. They could totally do it, but they won't.
A couple, what you said just really struck me. I took a training with her name is Dr. Susan Esquilin, I think maybe. It was on ACEs. And I asked her, because you know, she's presenting all this data and it's so clear that ACEs are just, they're so rooted in systemic issues like racism and poverty and all of these things. And I asked her, I said, as an expert in this field, are you presenting this differently? Are you thinking about this differently, or how you're going to move forward with all this in the environment that we're in right now? And she literally pointed out that if you have been paying attention, like what they're working on, what they're really fueling on is the shock and awe of it all. But if you have been paying attention, you are actually not surprised. And she's like, I am not surprised by what is going on. And she pointed out that marginalized populations have always existed, and they still do. You know, she pointed out, she's like, there was a Holocaust and there are still Jewish people. There was slavery for centuries. There are still Black individuals. Like she pointed out that, and what she said that struck me was the thing that concerns her now is the epidemic of loneliness, the isolation and lack of community, because the ways that these populations have survived through resilience has pretty much always been through community. And so how, when you feel like your community is getting so fractured, can we still like kind of hold on to that? And like this great article I read about like tending the garden you can touch, and like planting your own, it's a phenomenal article. Just like you plant your own garden of values and ideals and you make it beautiful, other people will notice and be like, oh, hey, could I have some of those seeds? And you could, but you got to start with your own garden and then like make it your small community. But those are the two things that really struck me, is that yes, marginalized populations, there's always been, and they have survived. What's going to be different this time, like post-pandemic, is going to be maybe like the community part of it, which is why I was so excited about something like this. I don't know any of you. I'm in New Jersey, you know, I'm a therapist in New Jersey, and just having this opportunity is somebody just being like, I don't know, let's just see if anybody will show up and let's talk about this is, I think, so important. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for showing up, even though you didn't really know us or anyone. Yeah. Others, questions, comments? How are you
I'm
all?
curious, like how other folks are managing, like being aware of what's happening versus their stress, right? I find like I'm on this almost like balance beam, that I'll get overwhelmed by like the onslaught, which I understand that's the point, right? So I strategically try to focus on a couple key issues that are really important to me. And there comes a point where I just want to tune it out and just kind of go back to my little bubble. And the other side of that is I'm like, damn, that's white privilege. Just to be able to even do that. So it's like I'm juggling and I'm trying to figure out, what's my sweet spot and when is it moving, and what factors influence that, because I don't want to drop out and go into this sort of denial and ignore it thing, because I think a lot of folks have, and that's really not going to be helpful for us as people, as groups. But I also don't want to be so involved that I'm in constant fight or flight, hyper vigilant, not sleeping kind of thing. So I don't know what other people are doing with that.
Hi, Christine. Hi, everybody. So I'm glad you we're saying that. I think that I've been trying to channel I have a lot of rage and anger, and like on the one hand, I feel like I was born for this. This is the time. Express, because I almost feel like there's been so much time that I've witnessed things that I just thought were right, and I didn't say anything. I didn't know how to speak up, and I think I'm just learning now. But I'm no longer the thing I need to do, I think, for myself is I'm just expressing myself through social media, where I can respond to something that someone writes. And unfortunately, a lot of the people are my family members that I will respond to, but I almost feel like I'm just trying to say like, hey, here's another side of the story. Because there's always two sides. But I feel like it's very challenging where I have so many strong feelings, and I'm trying to figure out, how do I channel this energy? Oh.
Mhm.
I don't know what just happened. Oh, wait, I had a call.
I can hear you still.
Okay, hang on one sec. Let me go back.
Yeah, I think I'm walking like 8 miles a day now.
That's great.
God help me.
Yeah, I'm
So I don't know
very
how to get my
little.
thing back. Wait a minute.
What was that?
I'm trying to get back into, I don't know can you guys see me, or is it just off?
Yeah, you can see
We
and
do
hear
see
Oh, you
you.
can. Okay. So I can't see you guys, but I don't know. I had a call that came in and then it changed the screen. So yeah, so I think I've been just trying to respond to certain things and put out certain messages where it's like, I feel like I'm a little bit irritated with people that are just ignoring the fact that our democracy is going to end, or is ending right now. And I'm trying to figure out what the best way to direct my energy would be. So I guess that's what I just wanted to say now.
I know for me, when it comes to like where to direct the energy, I know for me, a mantra I've been saying to myself is find a way to tank their stock. So when it comes to businesses that have been very supportive, I'm not buying there anymore. And luckily, I'm not the only one who's doing that, because some stocks are tanking. I'm buying banned books. I'm just buying it. I am trying to do my part to boycott where necessary, to be engaged where it's endeavors that kind of fit me and the community. And just knowing how to organize voting. And that's kind of what I've been doing to kind of direct my energy. And having the thought process that I have a small part in tanking some stocks has been very, very empowering for me.
It's funny because I'm in Texas this week for a conference, and I was FaceTiming with my family last night. I have 2 teenagers, and I was saying I noticed on this trip that I am not really talking to strangers, like not really making eye contact, like even the elevator. And it's stuff that I've tried over the years to like do, like to socialize. And I was telling my kids this yesterday, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you have um, that face that's like, don't waste my time." And I was like, but that's so true. Like, I feel like my bandwidth is like I only have capacity for so much stuff, and I'm picking and choosing where I'm putting that energy. So while I think it's great to like talk to strangers and build bridges and like we need more of that, that's not where I'm putting my energy these days. I'm not on social media much because it's mean. And I miss following the activists that I would follow on social media, but I'm also like, I don't have a capacity for that. Like that if I want to do all these other things in my life, that I need to like be focused. And maybe, that's for a season. And then eventually I'll feel like I can open up a little bit. But I just kind of feel like I want to tend to the relationships that I already have. And I'm also reckoning with like I can tell that my bandwidth is lower because I I'm an introvert by nature, but I feel like I want to um tap out more than usual. And I think it's because it's just the dumpster fire is so intense and trying to keep up with everything and find like independent journalists who are going to tell me like the real stuff, and not like just the mainstream media is really important to me. But also, I don't have to be friends with everybody. I can be kind to everybody, but I don't need to be friends with everybody. And I don't need to put energy to people that you know, is going to take away from other stuff. And so, like, even picking and choosing who I have conversations with, because I just feel like some people, we're never going to see things in the same light. And so, I'm going to maybe address the movable middle, but I don't need the extremist, right, to be in my circle. It's not necessary for my survival.
Yeah, I like that, Natalie. And I was just gonna add too, I'm sorry what happened earlier. I had a call come in and then I couldn't see anybody. And I was like really, it was hard for me to focus on what I was trying to say. But I just wanted to say that like I think I've tried to move away from people pleasing. And I sometimes I just have something important to say and I'm saying it. And I think that's growth for me. And I think that I believe that I'm meant to like, or well, there's a lot of people meant to like stand up against this oligarchy. And I think I'm just trying to figure out the way to do that. So I'm trying to, again, like, um, just engage minimally with people that are on that extreme. And, I do think that like, I think, even having some friends that are in like in the education, field and asking them, like, they don't have any concern at all. I'm like, I don't understand how people just don't pay attention. Like, it's about your life. Like, it's about your life. So I almost feel like I ask a question and then I'm like, should I not have asked that? And then I'm like, no, I mean, it's like really what's happening in the world. But if people choose to not pay attention because they just think their union is going to take care of them, they're just clueless. And anyway, I just feel like it is hard for me to like figure out how do I engage with people because these are the issues that are most important to me. And if people are choosing to just ignore things that like I don't even know how to like engage sometimes, I guess is what I think is the issue for me. It's hard to figure out. And so I think that I don't know, I'm just trying to I don't know what I'm trying to do. I just try to go back to my meditation practice. I try to do that. I try to go back to yoga and the mindfulness things that I can do throughout the day. But I think I really want to identify, the path I can take forward for action. So, yeah.
Anger, right, is an emotion that we feel when we think we need to defend ourselves, like protect ourselves from some sort of threat, right? And so I think, like, I'm listening, like, I do the skills too, like I'll meditate and all that, but I don't think I'm going to be able to walk it away, meditate it away, any of this. Like the anger is, the purpose of it is, in my view, it's letting me know that I'm under attack and people that I care about are under attack right now. And it's motivating me to take some sort of action, right? That I think can be helpful. I mean, still trying to figure out what that is. In my day to day and keep my head above water. One of the things I enjoy is malicious compliance. So for the people that I know of that, I don't want to have to use your chosen pronouns, I will actually use the opposite pronouns for them. And when they squirm and get upset, it's like, well, you established that, we don't get to decide what pronouns we want, right? So it's being able to kind of poke the bear. Immature maybe a little bit, but it helps me feel a little less powerless. And I think people, we learn through emotional experiences. So on some level, folks that think of, there's some of the individuals out there that just have fun. It's like a thought experiment to debate someone else's humanity. Right. And so they're so removed from it with their privilege that when, at least in my mind, when I can do some of these things and they feel the sting of it, of being misgendered, it's like, oh, yeah, okay. So you get a sense of what we're talking about now. So that's another thing that I try to do to, I don't know, keep my head in the game, to not drop out, not collapse, as Natalie had talked about. I want to hear what other people like outside of this panel, like what you're doing with your anger.
I'll go. Hi, I'm Nicole. Hi, Christine.
Hi.
I know we've talked about this extensively, so I'll try not to speak too long, but for me, seeing things on social media when I'm choosing to engage with the news and, watch things, when I see something that strikes me, with that immediate ping of anger, if it's usually government related, those people usually have contacts somewhere, and they're usually easy to reach out to. So what I've been doing is I've been reaching out to, the Congress people, the sheriff in Idaho, I've been just sending them direct emails, and just, kind of being like, dude, WTF, what are you thinking? What do you do? I'm like, here, the sheriff in Idaho that, dragged that woman out of, the town hall. I was like, here's your oath of office from Idaho that you took. Do you need a reminder that it's to protect the Constitution? And she was using her First Amendment rights. So like, I'm literally just like having these direct outbursts, whether these people ever respond to me or not. But I think that for me is a better way to channel my anger because I'm at least getting to say it directly to the people who are making me feel that way. So
I love that.
I appreciated hearing someone say that, in this dumpster fire, that it can get so overwhelming that you may not know like where to focus your energy and to just pick like 3 things that are important to you and focus on that. Right. So because I think they're all interrelated causes. Right. And so I think if we could focus on 3 things, like for me, like if I would say like, what are my top 3 things these days? I'm really concerned about free speech, particularly on college campuses, but like in the world, like that if we can't talk about things and we can't have differing opinions, like to me, that's like, that is incredibly concerning. And like, where does that go? And then I think about like racism is always like a thing for me. And like thinking about the ways in which people are getting deported, like the violence of it all, and the ways in which the systems and structures, like racism is so embedded in the systems that you cannot call it racism, and yet it's still racism. And so like I'm really like looking at that stuff, and then like thinking about trans rights. Like if I would say like my top 3 things, like for me those are the things. And so trying to like see like how can I be an accomplice to these things? How can I still be talking about these things? Like in terms of like my anti-racism education, like I was like, I'm still gonna keep doing what I'm doing because racism didn't go away, even if we're supposed to not talk about racism anymore. It sure for sure didn't go away. And so for me that's helpful because it all interconnects. And we just need people to figure out where to mobilize. How about others? What are some of the ways that you're trying to like narrow down what you need to focus on?
I'll go if no one's gonna say anything. Hi, everyone. Um, so I know what I've been doing is surrounding myself with positivity, love, light, anything that makes me laugh, anything that entertains me outside of the dumpster fire, because sometimes a lot of it is comical. Another thing I'm not doing, as you guys discussed earlier, was sort of that road between being nice and being polite. I find myself not doing either. So I've been just being honest with people. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, honesty is neither polite nor nice. And a lot of people, it just makes them think on what they're doing. Outside of that, I'm just staying informed, but just, staying to myself, basically.
Mhm.
Well, I hope that we'll all let go of niceness and politeness, that can just be hospice, it can just be retired. And like we just keep, and when we relapse, we just keep trying to break up with it because it's not going to save us.
Right. I often think about, as we forget that we're animals. And, with animals out there, there are predators and there's prey. And part of like, in my thinking is just I absolutely refuse to be prey. Just absolutely refuse. And I think part of that's the not being accommodating and nice and all that stuff that the good girl training that we women get, because it doesn't work for us. um,
Yeah, I like what Margarita put in the chat about strategic marginalization. People is historic, but not a mandate. It's possible for us to work towards collective liberations and freedom. I think it begins with people being able to imagine a world that is not. So I think, that idea of us choosing liberation, whatever that, even if that's just inside of ourselves, thinking about the boxes that we put ourselves in and how these systems want to just keep recreating marginalized people and people who feel like they have no choices and that there is no different path that we can build as a community to counteract, right? If we look across time, there have always been movements and resistance and ways that people have survived like unimaginable horrors, and we're living in those times.
And I wanted to just put that in context to someone's comment about a workshop they went to, and somebody was sharing that there's always been, the Jewish people are still here. And, I was just like, oh my God, because I feel that, and I don't know if I heard it wrong, but I feel that's a way for people to short circuit the work that needs to be done, and to say, well, it's always been there. If there's a biblical place where Jesus says the poor will always be with you, but I'm not with you, but will not always be with you. But I think it's taken out of context, and we need to. I think that we are called to a place where everybody is free. So that's where that was coming from, and so we don't lose sight of that. This is not the way that we are supposed to be living. So that was the thing.
Thanks for clarifying. Other thoughts, reactions? I thought I had seen somebody else unmute.
I am muted. Hey, Julia. Hey, good to see everybody. Yeah, people were talking about social media, and I have like 971 friends on Facebook, and when the first Trump regime was whatever in effect, I threw a lot of my I unfriended a lot of my family members because they were just extremely pro-Trump, and I was like, okay, and they were too far gone, let's just say. And so I unfriended them because I didn't want to see their propaganda. And I am now at the point where I'm just thinking about unfriending some other ones, but I don't, because I post things about what is going on in the world. I post protests. There's going to be one April 5th, a big one. If you don't know about 5051, .org, check that out, because I think that if everybody gets in the streets and we show that solidarity of like Tiananmen Square or something, like, like stand up and let them do their tear gas, I guess. Because that's where I came from growing up in DC and growing up during the time of the Vietnam War and all the protests and like actually being tear gassed anyway, as a child. So I'm not throwing people off of Facebook right now because I actually know a few people who have posted some things when I post, and they're, pro-Trump, or but they make interesting comments, and it helps me understand where they're coming from. Um, that they're so brave to actually stand up to me because they totally know how I feel. And I do like to hear their perspective and to understand, but I don't post anything to try to change anybody's mind, because I heard something long ago that you make up your political mind when you're 11. I don't know if that's absolutely true these days, but I just think I can't change anybody's mind. I can try to keep people informed of what's going on. And also, I post funny memes because I think we still need humor. And sometimes I worry that what I post dysregulates people, because sometimes it dysregulates me. And I have a lot of skills to re-regulate, but sometimes my friends might not. So I try to be very selective of what I post, and then balance it out with some funny memes to make people laugh. And then I just posted some little purple crocus to say that are in my neighborhood. I took a nice picture of them, and I said, hope for the flowers. So trying to keep some hope alive that we can find ways to speak up. And yeah, that's sort of like why I hang on to Facebook. So there you and not throw people off these days. Anyway, thanks.
I kind of want to piggyback off what you're saying, Julia, about the not wanting to dysregulate people. I kind of think that we need to challenge that idea that we do need to dysregulate people, because when we're dysregulated and knocked off balance, we make change, right? And that's also part of how we get comfortable in discomfort, is if we get used to dealing with that more. Like some of the things that we've in the aerial yoga classes I've been taking is like sitting in that discomfort, but not running away from it, but like the edge of discomfort and pain, and like becoming more familiar with it to make us be more receptive to change. Because when we sit in comfort, we don't grow. And I think that for so long, because the niceness and the kindness that we've had, we don't challenge that enough for people. So like I can appreciate the wanting to educate, but also like pairing it to make sure it's not dysregulating for some people. But I think we have to try to like let people sit with that discomfort more, so that way they think about it more. Because if we're comfortable, we don't always think about the things, if that makes sense.
Right, but also, I'm sorry, but I mean, I can't watch MSNBC anymore.
Mhm.
I can't, especially what they did to Joy
Yeah.
Reid, and it incredibly dysregulates me. I just I can't watch that stuff, and that I get afraid that some of the things that I might post might be too extreme, and I could lose friends. And I'm talking about liberal friends, and and dysregulating liberal people, not necessarily conservative people, but yeah, I just try to, how can I say? I mean, be mindful a bit, if that makes
Right.
sense. But I do agree with you what you're saying of like, people need to be educated, and I do see it as my role to educate them of the real horror that's going on in the world, and
Right.
that's going on, and then like also to try to mitigate it with so, like posting about all the protests, all the economic blackouts, all and my own practices of stopping shopping at those big corporations, and trying to get out to some protests on April 5th myself, and maybe giving some money to some justice causes. Anyway,
Again, I do think
Uh,
there's like there's a big difference, but dysregulation, I think, encompasses so like an incredible spectrum of distress. We don't like there's some stuff sometimes I'm just like, this is traumatizing. And traumatizing is different than just throwing people off. It's fine, but if you're throwing people off to an extreme, and then those people also don't have tools to regulate themselves enough to be like keep using their thinking brain, then you're not definitely doing any good, because then people are just, again, like, you've knocked them into such dysregulation that they're just acting with instinct and emotion, and there's no thinking, and that's definitely not productive. It's why when I work with my clients, I've done a lot of trauma studies and certifications, and they talk, instead of like comfort zone and stepping outside your comfort zone, building a window of tolerance, because I can tolerate a lot of things. Like, I can tolerate being sad and anxious. I can also tolerate being happy, and I can tolerate excitement. But like, so like, that's kind of what I work with like clients, is the window of tolerance. And there's so many things we can tolerate. When you're outside of that, that's like trauma response time. So I think dysregulation just is maybe too broad a word. And there's a difference between throwing people off and like setting them into a trauma response.
I'm not a
Right. And I think
therapist. I'm not a therapist, sorry. So maybe I use that word problematically,
No,
but
no. I think in general, we were all like, all of us, just to not at all, because I think it's a great word, but when it can be really broad, and I think that there's a difference between, you got to make people feel uncomfortable as long as they can tolerate that discomfort. So again, staying in that window of tolerance can mean that I feel anxious and I feel uncomfortable and upset or angry and frustrated. But because I'm still in my window, I can still connect to my thinking brain, and I can still make some more informed decisions, and maybe, change my mind and not start acting inappropriately.
right.
Yeah.
I think this is a good example of the nuance that is really lacking in a lot of public discourse, right? So that, so there's going to be context and if-thens and lots of nuance. I think everybody is making valid points on this, and it's just not simple, right?
And maybe it requires us to let go of one right way, right? Which to me is part of like the decolonialism, right? And like so much of this is like almost like circular versus even beyond like both and, because I think as someone who often thinks about expanding people's window of tolerance, to also recognize that for some people, like particularly if you come from a marginalized identity and you're particularly targeted and vulnerable right now, that part of your liberation story might be not appeasing other people and not even thinking about what their capacity is, right? Because that requires a certain amount of labor, right? And so, I don't remember the exact metaphor of like, like someone's house is on fire versus another person, like maybe there's a leak in the roof. Like those are two very different experiences. And so, how do we also hold space for that? And so, like, when I think of like being a good accomplice, that might mean that I take on that responsibility to notice where people are in their window of tolerance and regulate perhaps how I talk to them so that the person who I'm trying to be an accomplice to doesn't have to put that labor in, right? And so I think like when somebody had talked about not policing, right, is like, I think part of liberation is that we get to have our different ways of showing up, right? Some of us want to call people out. Some of us want to call people in. Some of us want to avoid, right? Like, and so can there be room for all those different ways of being, and that we let go of like, this is the right way. And I guess for those of you who tend to maybe be avoiders, like, can you do that for a little while and then come out of that and find your little ways, right? Like some people, I think also about like abilities and resources, and some people who are not as protected. So like posting things on social media or going to marches or doing some things that are very public can be dangerous, and they might risk losing more than other people. But there are other ways you can do, like ways you could donate money, or ways you can like sign a petition or call your senator. Like, I feel like there's a lot of different ways. And I guess I want to really encourage people who are opting out. How do you dip your toe back in ways that are sustainable? Because this is not going away anytime soon. And so like, how do we keep showing up for each other and for ourselves?
Creating those mutual aid networks, like that's the biggest thing that I think when we talk about like protesting or engaging in these other acts of like not spending or not engaging with certain brands, is that we forget like there are places where there's not an option to not do that. There's plenty of like things that like locations like in food deserts where there's not able to engage in those things, and finding ways that how do we create those aid networks more, and communicating and like having people who can get things to other people. Like that's something that like our cohort for the program I just completed, we created our own Discord server in the middle of it. And one of the things that one of our cohort members is in Texas, and they are asking people to say, hey, can anybody get us these things? Can anybody drive them in? And like, that's about building that network of saying, I can't access this because of where I am. Is there somebody who is able to go get me the camping supplies? That way, I can camp appropriately in my backyard, right? And like being able to help build and support one another in those ways, because not everybody can do everything and not everybody needs to do everything, but we have to be able to build those skills and lean into the skills and the things that we do have to support the people who can do those things that maybe we can't.
I like how you mentioned skills, because for me, something I've been saying to myself and to clients, and I mean this very genuinely, skills is what's going to help us survive. And hopefully we can move from a space of surviving to thriving and overcoming. But skills is going to be the name of the game for the next 4 years.
I hope people are checking out the resources in the chat. There's some really great ones in terms of books and places where you can plug in, and strategies. And I hope that we have more of these conversations to just help support each other and maybe keep each other honest and accountable, and moving towards like building that kind of support and community.
I would like to put it out there. I haven't checked with you, Natalie, but if any of the folks that are signed on tonight, if you have ideas of just like community building things, to talk with the therapist that your email contact at mmcounseling.com, right? Just to give some ideas, because I think we're still trying to put our heads together and figure out how can we be effective and support each other.
Any other questions or comments?
I feel like I just want to say hello from Canada, because I joined from Canada, and we love you all. We're thinking of you. There is so much heartbreak and rage about what's happening in your world. And, we're looking at you sort of as an example of how we're going to vote in our next election, because there's a lot of parallels right now. And I just wanted to say that, like, we don't think all Americans are one particular way. We know that the majority of folks are not wanting what's happening right now. And I guess I just wanted to say that. I'm not an ambassador or anything, but I just wanted to say, I love the States. I've been there lots. I will be back. It's not going to stop me, but yeah, just thinking of you all.
Thank you for that.
Definitely need it. Anyone else?
It's funny, I saw Lisa's comment.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just over here lurking.
Hi.
Well, I invite you each to think about what's one thing you can do to kind of either expand your window of tolerance, have a little bit more joy or community or rest. And maybe we can unmute and just say it out loud, or you drop it in the chat. I see 5calls.org, right? So that's an action item. So just inviting to kind of think about this, and hopefully we can meet up again and like just keep checking in and keep, encouraging each other to keep showing up.
I'm doing this instead of burying my head in a fiction book because I'm all about escapism right now. But I figured, thanks to my therapist prompting, I would come and see how I can get involved. Because I love the idea, Julia, of going to a protest, but I just don't think he cares. I don't think the administration cares. I think, like Tiananmen Square, they'll just roll us over with tanks if we get in the way. They just don't. It just seems pointless, which is terrible. And I'm sorry. I don't mean to be bringing anybody down, but so it's hard.
Yeah, that's why I say go for the money, and and also
Mhm.
I'm kind of a fan of the women going on a strike with men, so then maybe they'll get a little bit more active and start supporting some of our reproductive rights, so that's kind of get people where it hurts.
What's that movement called? Isn't it called something where like
Yeah,
In
it's like a
Korea,
movement in
right?
Korea.
In
Here
Korea.
it's decentering men, right? Is what a lot of the social media stuff is. But yeah, but if they're getting rid of, I mean, if basically trying to force people, women to have babies, well, one way that you can totally avoid that if you'd like is to just not participate in any activity that can result in pregnancy. No. I think that'll get a lot of men very politically active.
influence. Yep.
Mhm.
I like this reminder about touching the grass, putting your feet in the grass, being in nature, practicing sacred self-care for Lent, protests, boycotting blackouts. So just thinking about all of these different ways, right? Like the cumulative impact of taking care of ourselves and taking care of each other. So important.
And in one of the articles I posted, there's a really great line about letting joy be your middle finger to the apocalypse, because it says like fascism thrives on fear and breaking our spirits. So laugh, find a song that makes you dance, pet a dog, eat something delicious, read something absurd, small joys in these times. I mean, it's we have to do all, we want to do all these other things, but so much of that really creates a lot of like, and not so much just laughing. And so finding like joy really is a middle finger to fascism. Like, yes, things are really awful. I'm still going to laugh. I'm still going to find something to smile about every day. Cause that's what all of this is all about, is making us not smile, is making us put our heads down, lose ourselves, lose our identities. And I do think that joy and laughter, even in the smallest little bits, is kind of a real big, FU to what some of their intentions are.
Jerry posted a really good question in the chat of, are there resources for those of us who are not therapists on how to increase your window of tolerance?
There's therapists you can work with.
Yes. But also it's like the active skill use. The active skill use will in time widen that window of tolerance. And to also balance out that skill usage, in my mind, I was like to balance skill usage with self-compassion, because we are going to get thrown out of the window of tolerance. It's impossible to stay there 100% of the time, especially nowadays. So if we do, how do we use skills? And they can be anything, taking a walk, watching funny videos. If we know our DBT skills, any distress tolerance skills will bring us back into the window of tolerance, and with the regular use, increasing the window.
I'm also a big fan of exposure, right? That the like going outside of your window of tolerance. So like if something makes you anxious, doing it anyway, maybe in small dosages, widens your window of tolerance, right? So if you have like a lot of fear-based thoughts and a lot of worry, and you kind of do opposite action and get yourself to do the thing, then you increase your confidence, like, oh, I survived that. Oh, like it wasn't as bad, or it was as bad as I thought, but I still survived it, right? So I think if you have a tendency to be polite or nice, right, and you resist that or disrupt that, the more you do it, the more you increase the repetitions, the muscles, you build the muscles, you increase your window of tolerance. Like when I was talking at the beginning about anti-fragility, like the more I tolerate, like, oh, this person's mad at me, oh, this person's writing nasty things about me, like the more I like move through it, like I'm less fragile now than I was 5 months ago because I weathered the storm and I came out with new friends, more support. And so I think whatever we can do in our day-to-day life to not avoid and to be like wise about where should I experiment with this? Because I think, incremental change, I think is better than like doing something that's like so overwhelming that then you don't do anything for 6 months, right? Like let's do it in like bits and pieces, titrate
could-
it.
Maybe practice saying no without explaining why. It's a think about that tends to be scary for a lot of people. Natalie, do we still have, I know that we were keeping it for us, but maybe if we could get people to contribute, is like a registry or a listing of local businesses that are either, women owned, Black owned, minority owned, that at least in this, this area that people could know to frequent?
I don't know where everybody is coming from, so I have like no sense, but I mean, I think it's a great, I don't even know how updated our list is, but I think it's great, like when you think about like things you can do, like doing research
Always the
around,
money. It's the money.
yeah, yeah,
That's what gets people's attention.
yeah. I mean, I definitely think where we spend our money is really important. And we might not think that that's a big deal, but that's a huge deal. For sure. And I would also say to not, to do a power analysis regularly, right? Like, don't just do like a blanket checklist, like really like investigate, like, where you're getting facts from, but also like who actually owns the business and like who actually owns the business now, right? Like I just think like sometimes we get the list and we just do the list, but we should actually do the investigating to figure out like we might be harming, a queer-owned business because we think it's whatever, like owned by somebody else. And so, and also be gentle with yourself, right? Like we don't need to do all the things at 110%. Sustainable long-term goals. That's better, in my opinion. Great. Anything
I
else?
found our list. It's actually over 3 years old and it's very short and small.
Mm.
And actually one of them, I think I think like Honey Pot is listed on here, and I know that they've actually been purchased and they are no longer, I think, owned by the original owner. So like that's a great example of like how in 3 years, because I just happened to found it and I was like, oh, this is from 2022. And like, yeah, that has changed. That has changed. And like we say, like, oh, it's available at Target. Well, Target, has rolled back a lot of the things. That's probably a place we would no longer like want. I'm thinking of the BDS list. It's a boycott, divest, sanction list is also a really good list. That's been going on since before all of this, and that's been going on for years. That's a great list of like looking at larger companies that really you want to focus on the boycott list. That they've like researched how heavily involved they are, like in colonizing practices, like in Israel or in other places, like with having oppressive businesses. They have done a lot of research into who's the owner, because like we'll say, oh, drink Coke but not Pepsi, but then you don't realize that they're both owned by the same company at the top who is doing X, Y, and Z. So like that's kind of like what, you know, is also important about this.
Wow. Well, this was great. Thanks everyone for taking the time to be here and engage in your own way, and definitely want us to do more of these things and invite friends next time so that we keep having this grow. And recording will be available. We'll put it on our YouTube channel, and I wish you all well. And you know, I think the main takeaway is how important community is and how do we disrupt regularly in all the ways that we can. Thanks, everyone. Take good care.
Bye.
Thanks.
A little dumpster fire.